How you doing, everybody? I'm Milan Jordan, and this is the MMA Daily Blitz, brought to you by FanStream Sports, powered by DSP Media. Please like, share, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow me on Twitter/X and Threads at Milan Jordan. You can also check out our website, fanstreamsports.com, for more great content. All right, big weekend this past weekend. The UFC was back in Beantown Saturday night for UFC 292. With not one, but two title fights in front of a raucous crowd. The main event for UFC 292 in Boston was for the bantamweight title between Aljamain Sterling and Sugar Sean O'Malley. The first round was close, but Aljo seemed content to make this a striking match, wanted to make this an exciting fight. Well, that proved to be a mistake. O'Malley clipped him early in the second, then pounced on Aljo with ground and pound as he was trying to scramble. Just a flurry, unrelentless series of punches before referee Mark Goddard stepped in and ended the fight. And as a result, Sean O'Malley is your new UFC bantamweight champion. He really utilized his range in this one. He has perhaps the longest reach at 135. He showed his one-punch power in winning the title. And if he wasn't already in the top 5 of most popular fighters on the UFC roster, well, the 28-year-old Sugar Sean O'Malley certainly is now. Some are saying that the Sugar Show could be in line for a Conor McGregor type of trajectory of stardom. They're comparing him to Conor McGregor already in terms of where his popularity could go. Sugar Sean is certainly, he's charismatic, he's likable, he's one of the more marketable fighters. He's a great marketer himself, well-spoken, very popular, really thought out deep thoughts when it comes to the business of MMA, and he's very popular, like I said, especially with the younger demographic. After the fight, O'Malley revealed that apparently he was dealing with an upper body muscle injury by his ribs. He said that had him not prepared for Aljamain Sterling's high-level grappling for the final 6 weeks of camp. And obviously hindsight is 20/20, but maybe if Aljo utilized his strengths and went for a takedown, maybe he'd still be the champ. But to his credit, Aljamain Sterling, he offered no excuses, was very classy in defeat, and said he feels he's earned an immediate rematch. And we'll see if and when that happens, given O'Malley's upper body injury to heal, along with giving Aljo time to recover as well. Because remember, he fought Sugar Sean O'Malley about 3 months after going the distance against Henry Cejudo in May. So if Aljo doesn't get the immediate rematch, maybe he'll make the move up to 145, but only time will tell if we'll get this immediate rematch, perhaps maybe in December or early 2024. All right, I mentioned there was 2 title fights in this one. The co-main event was for the women's strawweight title between champion Zhang Weili and Amanda Lemos. And let's face it, Zhang Weili, just a badass. She dominated Amanda Lemos for 25 minutes to retain her strawweight title. Credit to Amanda Lemos for her toughness. She took an absolute beating, and looked like there were a couple times when the fight could have been stopped or was close to being stopped, but Lemos, to her credit, hung in there. As for Zhang Weili, so precise, so technically sound, so brutal with her striking in her first title defense in her second reign as champ. So what's up next for the Chinese fighter? Well, perhaps Tatiana Suarez, or there's even some scuttlebutt about her moving up to flyweight, but I imagine she'll stay at strawweight, and maybe a date with Tatiana Suarez is in her near future. Welterweight matchup was on the main card, featuring 2 fighters, both competing for the 3rd time already in 2023. Up-and-coming fighter Ian Machado Gary, he remained unbeaten at 13-0, defeating Neil Magny via unanimous decision, and wasn't even close. 2 judges scored this fight 30-26. The third scored at 30-24. That's another dominating performance for Ian Gary, again, as he continues to skyrocket up the welterweight ranks. A couple of bantamweight bouts open up the pay-per-view portion of UFC 292. Mario Bautista defeated Damon Blackshear via unanimous decision, and Marlon Chito Vera defeated Pedro Munoz by unanimous decision, 30-27, according to 2 judges, 29-28 for the third. Marlon Chito Vera, he wants a title shot versus Sugar Sean O'Malley next. Marlon Vera is in the top 5. Sugar Sean O'Malley wants a guy that Chito Vera defeated via TKO way back in 2020 at UFC 252. We'll see what happens with that. I think O'Malley was kind of just dismissing that, but again, who knows? We'll see if Aljo gets the first shot at O'Malley's title, or If it will be Chito Vera or someone else, we shall see. All right, the prelims, the headlining the prelims was a long-awaited return of former UFC middleweight champion Chris Weidman, the All-American. He returned after a 2-year layoff. He suffered a gruesome broken leg against Uriah Hall back in April of 2021 at UFC 261. The broken leg, it was brutal. Some thought he wouldn't come back, but Weidman, to his credit, very determined to return, despite the fact that he needed multiple procedures to repair the leg, including a titanium rod being put in his right leg. Well, come fight night, Brad Tavares, excellent game plan. This fight was all Tavares. He punished Weidman's lead leg, whether it was an orthodox stance or southpaw stance, just continuously giving leg kicks to Weidman. That left Weidman compromised, limping for most of the fight. And another one of Tavares' strengths is his takedown defense, and he stopped takedown after takedown from Chris Weidman. And right to a unanimous decision. This fight wasn't even really close, to be honest with you. All three judges scored at 30-27 for Tavares, his first victory in over 2 years. And Chris Weidman, it looked like at first he wasn't doing anything with his right leg, and I think maybe Tavares recognized that. And I don't know if it was to switch the game plan or to maybe didn't feel comfortable. And understandably, he's overcoming a vicious injury. But then, Tavares, to his credit, that leg was out there hanging out, and Tavares basically kicked it to death, and he did with the other leg as well. Meanwhile, as for Chris Weidman, UFC President Dana White in the post-fight press conference, he said that one of the UFC doctors told him that Weidman tore one of the cruciate ligaments, whether it's an MCL or ACL. If that's the case, Weidman could be in for another long road to recovery, leading Dana White to opine that the 39-year-old former middleweight champ should retire. Meanwhile, Weidman vowed that he would be back, so we shall see. Again, this is just a few days removed from UFC 292, so after a while, we'll see where Chris Weidman stands and where his injuries stand, and maybe a more precise diagnosis. All right, looking at the rest of the prelims, Gregory Rodriguez, beautiful knockout of Dennis Whelan, just $143 into round number 1. There were 2 tournament finals for the Ultimate Fighter Season 31. We just went through with Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler as coaches. The lightweight final, Kurt Holloway defeated Austin Hubbard via triangle choke in round number 2. And the bantamweight final was a great fight, and it was Brad Katona defeating Cody Gibson by unanimous decision. 2 of the judges had him winning 2 of the 3 rounds. Another gave him all 3. But this was just a great striking match back and forth. Sort of reminiscent of Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonner to some degree, but nothing will ever be as iconic as that. But this was a very entertaining fight, and it's great that they have the Ultimate Fighter finales in front of at a pay-per-view, even if it's on the prelims, with that kind of a full 18,000, 16, or whatever the capacity is in Boston, that big of a crowd as opposed to just a couple thousand at the at the Palms or wherever in Vegas. But nonetheless, Brad Katona becomes the first 2-time TUF champion 5 years after he won the TUF 27 featherweight finale, and Brad Katona again wins the bantamweight final this time around. All right, well, we had the UFC on Saturday. On Friday, we had the PFL Playoffs 2, featuring semifinals in the men's heavyweight and the women's featherweight division. In the heavyweight semifinals, Renan Ferreira defeated Maurice Green via KO late in round number 1. The other semifinal, Denis Goltsov defeated Jordan Heiderman via arm triangle choke, also in round number 1. So Ferreira and Goltsov will meet up for the heavyweight final to win the 2023 season. Meanwhile, in the women's featherweight semifinal, Larissa Pacheco, just one of the baddest, if not the baddest woman on the planet. She needed just 14 seconds to defeat Olena Kolesnik via TKO, just punching her out in 14 seconds of round number 1. Remember, Larissa Pacheco won the featherweight division last year, defeating Kayla Harrison. Well, this time around, Larissa Pacheco will take on Marina Maknatetina as she defeated Amber Lieberich via armbar, also in round number 1. Well, the PFL playoffs, they're going to resume Wednesday night for the 2023 PFL Playoffs 3 on ESPN. It's a really good main card. Check it out. Lightweight semifinals, you got Clay Collard taking on Shane Burgos, and Olivier Aubin-Mercier takes on Bruno Miranda. In their welterweight semifinals, you got Saidabu C taking on Carlos Leal, and Magomed Karimov takes on Solomon Renfro. Should be a really good card Wednesday night. Again, check it out on ESPN. In the UFC, well, they're back at it Saturday. They head to Singapore, and the entire card is on ESPN Plus with the big time difference over in Singapore. The prelims start at 5 a.m. Eastern time, and the main card begins at 8 a.m. The main event, really good one. Max Holloway taking on the Korean zombie, Chan Sung Jung. Also on the card, you got Anthony Smith returning to action as he takes on Ryan Spann, and Bruce Leroy, Alex Caceres, will take on Giga Chikadze. All right, folks, well, that'll do it for this episode of the MMA Daily Blitz, brought to you by FanStream Sports, powered by DSP Media. Again, wherever you are, like, share, subscribe to this podcast, wherever you consume your podcast. Tell a friend, tell someone who's not a friend, family, whatever. Tell coworkers to subscribe to this podcast. I appreciate you doing so. You can follow me on Twitter /X and Threads as well, at Milan Jordan. As always, thank you for checking out the MMA Daily Blitz. I will talk to you later.